Is it worth growing a TikTok for your home services business?
Today, we talk to Stephanie Postel, the co founder of Anchor Heat and Air out of Charleston, South Carolina. They have an incredible brand, a great brand story. As well, they have a really large TikTok following. For a home services business to be investing as much as they do into TikTok, we had to get to the bottom of why they're doing what they're doing, what success they've had, and how it has altered and changed the way that they do business. So, without further ado, Bryce, let's get to our conversation with Stephanie Postel of Anchor Heat and Air.
Let's dive in.
Stephanie, I have one kind of scene setting question for you, which is y'all went through like a rebrand, correct?
Yeah,
Or like
kind of.
a punch up of the brand.
Yes, somewhat.
Okay, all right. So tell me, how long have y'all been in business? Where are you out of? And also, like, tell me the story of like the Anchor brand, because you guys go all out on the Anchor theme, the nautical theme. Like,
Yes.
it's in everything you do, from the truck wrap to like what your memberships are named, things like that. So,
Yeah.
give me a little bit of like direction there as far as like when you started, what the brand story kind of is and has been, and ultimately how it's ingrained in everything you guys do.
For sure. Well, so David and I have been in the industry a little over 20 years, me close to 15 now. I was operations manager of a large company. David was installer, and then install manager there. We left that company. That was a good thing. Sometimes we all outgrow each other. And so, but learned a ton there. We actually, during COVID, went into business with an investor. And he wrote the check. We were the owners of the company. We did everything, grew that company up to 5 million in 20 months. And then he fired us, took back our ownership in the company, and left us out on the corner, and then tried to accuse us of stealing from the company. So when you go through hard things, then you get into the next thing, and it is much more meaningful and is built on a much different foundation. So past that, we were not going to work for anybody else and do this for anybody else again. So David was the license holder, and we had no plans to leave that company. We thought that we were going to retire from there. That was the plan. However, God provided for us, and 2 weeks later, we started Anchor. And that really came from, honestly, it's built on our faith. And my sister had sent us a quote about, if you are anchored in the Redeemer, you will not, no matter how high the tide rises or how much the wind blows, you are going to be just fine. And I told David, I said, we're going to be Anchor Heating and Air. And we were. And so we started that way. And, I had branded that company prior. And so marketing is not my background, but is my love and my jam, is just what I've done over time. And so we started with an Anchor brand, of course, one that, we got off of, I don't know where it was, probably Fiverr or something, but it was, I knew Dan, and I knew that whole thing. And so we were actually teal and black and gray. We were not red and blue. So we had somewhat of a brand. But again, we had a long-term business plan, but, I had the business plan from that company that we were growing. So I just took that business plan, put it right in this one. And we knew, what level of service we could provide. And we started providing that level of service right out the gate. And we charged what we were charging at that $5 million company 2 weeks before, because we were going to provide the same level of service.
Yeah.
And then, further down the road, then I actually went to work for Contractor Commerce for 8 months.
Oh, really?
We're also running and starting our company. So I was working from home doing contractor coaching through Contractor Commerce, and then, dispatching calls at breakfast, lunch, and dinner and everything else, setting up Service Titan, doing all the things. And then, we just grew over time. We did not again, not planning to leave. We didn't have a list. We didn't have anything. All we could do is market. And we jumped right into everything. And because we were priced right, from the beginning, we had money. We started with $2,000. Don't get that wrong. That is all we had. We bought that first unit and we flipped that $2,000 into the next one.
You had just enough gas in the tank to get it started.
That was it. And literally, there's way more to this story, but we didn't have a van. We borrowed a truck from our son because we didn't have anything to put a unit in. And then that broke down. And then my Tahoe transmission went out.
Oh,
and
man.
It was like, what is going on here? Like, God, I know you have us, but you're really, really giving us, we're going to appreciate this.
I'm feeling a little like Job here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, and that is so funny that you say that, because it was December of 21, December 9th that we got fired. And I walked into Christmas Eve church and I was still a mess, right? I mean, we'd already started the company for 3 days before, but the guy that the good friend of ours that we walked in the church and told him the whole story. And he said, well, have you read the book of Job? And I said, no. And that Christmas Eve, we read the whole book of Job. And you are not, if you haven't, you should, but that is exactly our story. And I will tell you also, we have never looked back. So we have never looked behind. We've always looked forward. And that's just goes into everything that we do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, I'm glad that Tucker asked you that, because that really explains a lot, gives a lot of context to your brand story and how scrappy you guys are when it comes to marketing, and how much you guys do push the envelope with your strong branding and leading right into TikTok. It makes a lot of sense to me that you guys are really resourceful. So
absolutely. Well, the whole thing is, I talk to people a lot of times about marketing, and it's great to get rebranded. There's no, I'm all for it, right? But make it mean something. And if it doesn't mean something to you, make it up. Get a story about it. Relate it somehow, right? Because that's the way that we're able to be so passionate about our brand. And that's what comes through, is that we rebranded, and the anchor obviously is huge. My pearls are wrapped around the anchor. I've worn pearls every day since I was 14. I don't wear anything else. I wear pearl earrings and a pearl necklace, and that's my thing. But that is woven into our grit, and that we are going to grow into something amazing, that pearls are strong. So we have the pearl promise, right? So that goes into that part of it. I went to Clemson, so our colors have orange and purple in them. So that's why we wear purple all the time. On our brand, there are 3 gleams. That's our faith. We have Jeremiah 20:9-11 is on my arm and is, in our training room. So those things, when you ask me, anyone would say, what's your mission? What's your vision? I'm clear about that. And I think that sometimes as contractors, we're not, because you do get the mascot, or you do get the thing that doesn't have meaning for you. And so I think people struggle a little bit with that. But you can look at anything and look at yourself and find a way to connect it so that you can tell your story. And customers, they want to know your story. Right? They want to know why it's not sure, we're in a nautical or a coastal town. So does anchor sound good? Of course it does. But it doesn't sound as good as, my sister sent me this quote. It's on the wall in my training room. We look at it every day. It is because we went through some really hard stuff. And so every day that we get something here, it's because we went through that stuff. And so when we get blessings, it's because of that. When we have hard times, it's making us remember what we went through already, right? Nothing can be harder than what we've already been through to get where we
Absolutely.
are. So,
Absolutely. Well, I love it. I love the entire brand story. And I think you're absolutely right. I think we all have to drive the meaning, and we have to take that a little more seriously about our messaging, how we see ourselves internally as a team, what these colors mean, what our, logos mean. I love that you drive home the meaning of all of that for your team. That's huge. So So we got some, I sent you over 5 basic questions, really conversational. But I'm really curious, we see a lot of contractors getting curious about creating content. TikTok obviously is one platform where a lot of them are flocking. You got a lot of HVAC technicians who are not owners, who are just producing content straight out of the service van, which I love. I think it's amazing. I love seeing these guys who are HVAC techs or HVAC installers, and they're just recording, documenting their day, and they're crushing it. So I wanted to ask you, what initially gave you guys the idea to start a TikTok?
Well, it's funny when I think it was probably close to when TikTok first started, which was way before we had Anchor. David and I were sucked into TikTok before our kids were, right? And at that time, they were probably in high school. I mean, now they're all 22 to 25, but they were like, TikTok, that's stupid. Right. And so David and I were like, losing hours while we were, scrolling videos. And so we liked the platform before we ever participated. But once once we had Anchor, obviously it was like, what's free? What is easy for us to get into? Because when you're brand new, you want to spend money on equipment, materials, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to spend that much money on marketing because I knew what I could do myself. But I also on there started seeing, honestly, Leslie Harpole with Champion Plumbing in Oklahoma. Yeah. And they were killing it, and they killed it, of course, through COVID. They were probably some of the very first contractors that got on and did a really great job. And so when we opened Anchor, I was like, we're doing this. Sorry, David, like I'm videoing you, and because I have that marketing vision too, like, I would go, especially in the early days, I rode along with David in the truck all the time. And so it was easier for me to get content. And then you start thinking about the silly things. We were actually at my dad's house, rental house, and he had a clogged drain line, and he was up in the attic and I was outside, and it's probably one of our first TikToks. And, me, pearls, white shorts, and an Anchor t-shirt. And he goes, look out there and see it, stand by the drain and see if the water's coming out. And I was like, okay. And all of a sudden it blew crap all over me. And I was
man.
like screamed, and I was videoing. And so that was like really one of the first ones where then I made a TikTok out of it. What was funny, because people were like, we want the audio. And so I posted it because it was like, blew the stuff everywhere. And that was funny. And I, stuff all over my pants and everything. But then it was really funny when you heard me screaming at David. Like, did you do that on purpose? Did you know that was going to happen? So
it's like, brings a whole new meaning to popping onto the scene with that one.
Absolutely. So, I will still say to this day, I'm not great at wanting to be on video, right? Like putting the camera in my face is like not my favorite. I do it a lot because it's a great way to get across who we are and what we're doing. But to your point, I think at that time, so, that's almost 4 years ago. And that's really when a lot of companies were beginning to look at TikTok, or at least the early adopters. And that is really who I followed at the beginning, was Mr. Roger, who's a technician who has always videoed himself. Donahue, who's now AC Quality, he was the granddad of the soap cannon and the maintenance, right? And how he does his drill flip and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And there were technicians at that time where I was telling people, like, these guys are on TikTok. And I really actually looked at it as a recruiting thing from the beginning, because when you think about it, it's a little bit easier to be more local on TikTok now. But when it really first started, you didn't know who was following you. I mean, they could have been in Alaska for all you knew. But so I thought, well, if I can show who we are, maybe we'll attract some people to us. And if nothing else, we're giving you the behind the scenes. And so that was really, I guess, where I thought you have to know your platform. And that's really what I've always thought that TikTok was about. One, it forces you to video so you can use that content in other places. But second of all, it's really more about the recruiting on that side.
I love
So
it. And sorry, go ahead, Tuck.
You talk about kind of like the behind the scenes aspect of it. And like, that's so something that we do a ton of here at Yarbrough and Sons is, we share just transparently pretty much down to the net profit dollar percentage, and it starts a war zone in the comments, but obviously as you show like the transparency and the behind the scenes, things like that, like I think something that I'm sure you've talked to other contractors in the same way. I've heard a lot of pushback of like, the hate that you get or the hate comments, like, people just tearing you down or comment and things like that. How do you balance like, because obviously you guys have a big following, on TikTok and, across social media, y'all have a big following. And so the more you show of the behind the scenes stuff and show how the sausage is made, there's always that fear of like, okay, I'm going to get a hate comment or I'm going to get somebody who's, throwing stones, things like that. One, have you guys faced that? And two, if you have, like, what's the way that you handle those things?
Yeah. So I will say things on TikTok that I would not say anything anywhere else. So one of our first, right. I'll come back at a hater in a heartbeat on TikTok. And mostly I'll come back and say, oh, well, how come you say that about me and you don't even have any videos? Right. Like, oh, dude, with 37 followers, like you want to tell me how to do HVAC. And I think a lot of times they don't know that it's, especially at the beginning, they didn't know it was me, right? They probably thought it was David or somebody else.
They assume that it's like an agency or something.
Or a guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's true. It's like,
but when the first one that really went viral, of course, this is the thing in TikTok. You never know which one's going to go viral. And literally, we were out in the warehouse, and David was with our daughter, who's an installer, and he was showing her how to wrap an elbow. And so I videoed him. It was raining outside. We had nothing else to do. So I'm videoing them. And at 2:00 in the morning, when I couldn't sleep, I'm like, oh, let me see what I can do with this. I sped it up and I posted it. And it has gotten 1.5 million views the first time. And then the second time, I think it's got 400,000 or 500,000. But talk about hate. Oh my God, why are you touching that? Why are you touching the fiberglass? Oh, I'm itching. Why would you do that? How come you didn't cut it like this? Where are your knee pads? Why are you on the floor? How come you don't have a table? I'm like, oh my God, like, please show me your videos. We'd love to hear how you do that, and you just have to come back at them. Like, why you have to be a hater, But then at the same time, we got people that were like, what staple gun did you use? Why did you do it like this? Do you know the diaper cut or do you know the W cut? So I don't have any problems, especially when, sometimes people will see things and they pick out what the video is not about. And you're like, you have too much time on your hands. And
we found that too. And we've been really dialing in on like, okay, how do we make sure that we stop making content for HVAC technicians and start making content for homeowners? And that is a very distinct difference. Now, the problem is the HVAC technicians will always find you.
Yes.
And they, no matter how, if you're speaking to a homeowner on a very surface level, just trying to educate and tell someone, hey, this is how this works. This is how that you do it. You're going to get the, you're going to get the HVAC tech step up and be like, well, that's a dumb way to say that, And so it's, but that's been hard for us, is trying to make sure that we're making the content for the right audience, because we're Yarbrough and Sons. We're not making content for HVAC technicians. We're not we're grateful if we make something that educates someone working on becoming a better technician, but by all means, it's for homeowners.
Sure. Yeah. I think we've probably not had that thought about, being very specific about that. I think because we kind of do a little bit of everything, right? We've done some series. Like, one of the things I love that we did really got as many views as I thought is we did this whole Office series. that was so cute of like our technicians, and we had one of our CSRs wanted a 5-star review, and she asked a customer for it, and then the technician walked in and he's like, Miss Jones gave me a 5-star review, and she was like, what do you mean? So I think we've done a little bit of entertainment. We've obviously done a lot of education. Some of it is more internal, and that's the focus. Like, I just want my people to feel like sometimes they'll come and be like, I want to do this TikTok, right? Or even I'll get David, and David's like, I did video, and I now send it to Lucy, and Lucy made a TikTok out of it. And so it's funny what you can get them to do. We had Brian Burton here a couple of weeks ago, and had the guys here on a Saturday, came and did training. And of course, before they left, Lucy's like, we got to get together in the parking lot. We have to do this Aura farming TikTok or whatever. And not one of them complained. Not one of them. They went and got their part, and they got in line, and they did what we wanted to do. And so I think having that part is like, if that's culture, they like being on it. Back to one of your question about the hate, one of my technicians, who is like a clean freak, keeps this amazing truck. He gave a little tour of his truck, and you would not believe the hate from technicians. Who are like, must not sell.
No work.
Must sell units. Doesn't fix anything. I mean,
no work's being done there.
Right. And I was like, why is it that he has pride in his work and he does both very well? And that's you take that as an affront. I'm like, I don't understand that.
You touched on something there just a second ago, which is, where you said the team went out and like there was no complaints on anything like that. And, I think that's one of the things that like I've been asked several times, like, well, how do you get your guys to be able to do the videos, or what do you like? And my answer is always like, if you make it a part of who you guys are at your core, like it's going to happen naturally. Cause like, and especially if you're like tagging your team in it and like showing them off, like, of course they want to share it so grandma can see it, or so their wife can see it, or so their husband, like anything, and so I think that's the thing is like, you start, it's always going to be uncomfortable. And when you start, like, you have to be consistent with it. You have to be willing to die on this treadmill, because content is road work, right? It's never done. You don't ever get to be like, all right, we won TikTok, we completed.
I think we won trust with our technicians whenever after they see my edits, because I'm the in-house editor for a lot of our stuff, and so a lot of times I gained their trust whenever I made sure that they never look stupid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You want to cut out the ums and the erms and the pauses and their thought, like, oh, hang on, I need to think about what I'm saying, and I cut all that dead air out, because that builds a lot of trust with your team. If you do a good job editing the footage and make sure that you're setting your team up for success so they don't look silly, that helps them a lot. And so then next time you have to go out and record, makes it way easier. Yeah,
definitely. There's no question. And what you're saying, just about making it who you are, like we interview that way, and we tell people like we're on social media, and that's a big deal. And two things from that. One was when we rebranded, branded from Anchor to Anchor, we were hiring a technician, or I was interviewing a technician, and I said, we're on TikTok, and we do lots of videos. And he said, I know. He said, I chose option 4. And I was like, what are you talking about? Well, 4 months before, I had posted all of the options for our rebrand. And he was like, I chose option 4. And I was like, and that's the one on our truck, and that's your truck right out there.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
That is so good.
Right.
So that leads into that question I was going to ask you, is because you touched on just about everything. What kind of results have you guys seen? And it seems like, that's a great story. What else have you seen from this growth on your TikTok in your like local area?
Yeah. So second story from that is that we, David and I have only gone live once. I don't know why we don't, because it's really fun, but we went live one night just to answer questions and just interact with people. I mean, shoot, it's probably been a year and a half, But it's funny, later on, there was a bunch of the Facebook groups that people were tagging me. And I was like, what is this? Well, somebody wanted a comforter or a service technician position in Charleston. Well, of course, everybody's like, oh, Stephanie. So I was like, great. So brought him in, did an interview with him. And I said, we're on TikTok a lot. And he said, I know you would know me better as Charleston HVAC on TikTok. And I was like, when we went live, he was the person that had asked us all these questions about our company, about what we were doing, all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, to this day, I believe, and he's our install manager now. He was a service tech, but now he's install manager. I think that he posted on Facebook and then got on our live. Like, I think it was all a plan. But
that's hilarious.
Recruiting from TikTok has been a huge thing. I say all the time, I think, again, it's a way for technicians to date you before they have to ask you out, right? And so they get to see, like, okay, I see who I think they are on TikTok. But when I get here for the interview, are they the same people?
Right.
And,
I mean, that's like a that's like a whole, that's like an existential deal too, because it's like you have to, who you say you are and present. You know, that brand ubiquity isn't just isolated to a video. It's like down to the very, like, how you treat someone when they walk in the door.
That's right. And that's why when I talk to people a lot of times, don't get me wrong, there are some amazing agencies out there that are doing a really great job. But when I talk to smaller contractors who are really smaller, don't have that marketing brain, they're ready to just give that over to an agency so quickly. And unfortunately, like many other things in our industry, they're going to come back and say, well, they didn't do a good job for me. Well, an agency doesn't know who you are unless you know who you are. And so that is why I think, like, you've got to be really comfortable with what you want put out there, because otherwise it just looks like trend, you know, 3 things you can do in your home to save money in the summer, you know, and like, again, there's a place for that, right? Can you get some following for that? Absolutely. But are you going to get the payoff from really wanting to get followers or recruiting or whatever if you're not really showing who you are? I don't think so. So I think that's been one of the things for us, is just, you know, don't be so quick to give away, like, get in front of the camera. I think it's much more authentic for a 2-truck company for the guy to be driving around going, hey, I'm Johnny with my drill and my gauges, and I'm going to Susie's house, and here's what I'm going to do. Like, why not get a following that way for free, before you're really willing to just give it away and be kind of getting the templates?
That segues us perfectly kind of into that final question, which is, you know, so what would be your advice to other contractors who maybe, like, they don't know where to start? You know, and we kind of touched on that as, like, just flip your camera on, but, like, what kind of content should they be making? What kind of content would you say, hey, here's something that has worked for us, here's something I've seen work elsewhere, and here's what you should be doing to kind of drive that type of growth? And also, like, you know, what would be your response to the contractor who's like, I just don't think I got it in me?
I mean, you can either make money or you can't. Either, I don't know, like, what's the option? You know, I mean, fail or don't, you know, I mean, I think that's such a cop out, right? Like, oh, I don't want to do this, or I can't do it. Okay, well, then you can't make the money that everybody else is. Like, you can't grow how everybody else is going to grow, because the people that are out there that are moving and shaking, they're going to figure out a way to do this. And don't get me wrong, if the only answer is to get somebody else to do your TikTok, then do that. Right. But I think the authenticity of getting on the camera, and even if it's not you as the owner, but you have somebody in your office that is willing to do some videos, like, do it. And again, I think, you know, where we are, maybe we can be a little bit more focused and decide this platform is what this and this one is that. But at the beginning, do it all. Watch the trends, see how you can just get a little bit of traction. Video being in the community, video going to sitting down with your employees for breakfast, all of those things. If you're doing nothing more than just recording the history of your company. I'll tell you, that was, and I do it a lot, honestly, but when I thought TikTok was going to close down in January, going back through and downloading every one of those videos, and almost makes me cry now, but like, I have the whole history of my company on TikTok. Yeah. I have who we are, who we talked to, when we were going to rebrand, when Haley first went out with her dad and what she's learning as a female out in the field. And, she was supposed to be in the office, but then she left me and went with her dad and she's never came back. She's doing install by herself today. Having that history of your company, I think, is so important. And it helps and it reminds you where you came from and where you're going. So if nothing else, like, let that be your motivation. And then honestly, the more you're in front of people, like, people are going to see you're legitimate, you're trustworthy, all those things that we want homeowners to see. Even if it's not on TikTok, you reuse it on Facebook. Again, you have that content to show who you are. The whole answer to that is just do it. Like, go do it, because there's so many more people that aren't. Y'all know how it is. Like, honestly, we think our industry is so small, right? Because we all know each other. Like, people are like, oh, like, people from across the country. I'm like, yeah. Like, if you ask me a city and do I know somebody in that city that can do your HVAC, most likely I can say yes. Yeah. People don't understand that, right? Yeah. But think about how many more people aren't on there, right? How many more people aren't at the networking events that we go to? We're seeing such a small piece. So, like, there's so much opportunity out there. Like, go get your piece. Go do that part of it that can change your company if you pay attention to it.
Stephanie, I absolutely love it. You've really dropped some big truth bombs in this whole conversation, and I appreciate you hopping on with us today. I wanted to give you some time to plug whatever you want to plug here at the end of this conversation.
Well, for sure. Well, we always need more followers. So, of course, we're on TikTok, Anchor Heating and Air. I think we're LLC on TikTok. One of them we had to do SC, which
we'll throw it up on the screen. But I love you're still hustling. You're hustling.
Oh, absolutely. There is no question about that. And I'm very excited to continue to give back to the industry with a conference that David and I are hosting this fall. We're going to be at the Wild Dunes Resort for We Mean Business, which is for married and related business owners. So if anybody wants information about that, it's WeMeanBusinessCHS.com. And then, I'm not just one-sided. I'm not just HVAC. So in my off time, my husband and I love to ride mud buggies or side-by-sides. Nice. And actually, we have grown our high-proof off-road TikTok to over 5,500 followers in about 2 months. Oh, so, wow. We're doing the same thing over there. It just looks a little bit different. So go look for it there.
I knew that you had that side, the side profile, the passion project. And I was really hoping that would get brought up because I am a huge fan of that.
Yes, it's super fun. Listen and talk about that community, a very similar community to our HVAC side, right? The side-by-side community is a lot of blue collar people having fun, getting together. It's a great way to have a hobby that's outside of the really hard work that we do all the time. And we've done the same thing. We share what we're doing. We like bourbon, so we've included that in our side-by-side riding. And I think, again, that part of it, though, was my marketing side, that you got to have a niche, right? And so we don't just ride side-by-sides. We drink bourbon and ride side-by-sides, And so really thinking about, any kind of marketing that you do like that, what is going to make you stand out from everybody else?
I love it. Stephanie, again, I know we've been busy ourselves. I know you got to be busy. So we're going to let you get back to your work. And we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Absolutely. We are about 2 hours away from closing out our first $1 million month. So we are super excited.
Oh my gosh. That's huge.
Yeah. Yes, that's outstanding. Congratulations.
Hey, that's bigger. That's bigger than TikTok,
Right? It's big. So
we should have been talking about that.
Right? We're going to celebrate. So we're all going out steaks at a really nice steakhouse. So that's going to be good. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
And thank y'all for having me on. I'm excited about
Yeah.
it.
Well, we're excited to make more content like this, and we want to talk to more people just like you and kind of get an insider scoop. And we're looking at people who do things really well. Yours was TikTok. I was like, ooh, they got something figured out here that we need to untap. And so ultimately what Tucker and I want to do is be able to share your expertise and let other contractors know what it takes to get there. So
Perfect.
yeah, you're helping out a lot of people.
That's great. Well, thanks so much. Y'all too.
Awesome. Wow. Man, that was fantastic. I felt like she had some really great insights. It's interesting. Here's my final take, Tuck. She did a lot of research. She was an early adopter of TikTok as a platform. It seems like before she even thought of the application for her business, her and her husband were scrolling through TikTok late at night, probably laughing. And that's how they were doing that initial research before they even started thinking about marketing.
Research. We were watching cat videos. I'm sure of it, but we'll call it research. No, I think, I think that's pretty telling though, too. Cause it's like, I think the overall sentiment is that TikTok is a young man or young person's game, and the reality of it is like the average age of TikTok, I think it's one of the fastest platforms to age up that we've ever seen, and so like it's aged into our homeowners and our decision makers age profile, and so Stephanie and her husband, they were one users of it before they started doing it, and two, like I have to say this, Stephanie. She says the quiet part out loud, and I'm such a fan of it. Her take of like it's like either fail or don't. It's like I was like, man, I love that so much because that's like the attitude that I think we all wish we had. But had the she has the courage to say it out loud. So I think I have a ton of respect for that, and also talk about like somebody who's kind of like trailblazing the branding side of things.
And again, yeah, the do or die mentality, I think we resonate a lot with because it's a lot of like, it's like what I said recently in one of our trade talks is like, well, I guess just give up. I don't know. So it's the same exact mentality. But
Yeah, man.
I think a perspective I was not expecting was that they see TikTok as a means to recruit. They're seeing it as a recruitment tool more than just attracting local audience and local potential customers. They want to attract HVAC technicians. They want to attract professionals to their brand. And that seems like a great platform to make that happen. So I thought that was a really unique perspective on how to use TikTok.
And I wonder to what degree like the algorithm plays in their, reasoning for doing that, because like obviously if you get like on HVAC TikTok, you're going to be seeing nothing but technicians, nothing but like the tradespeople doing tradespeople things. And so like if that's the perspective that you have when you start making content, then I think it is an easier jump to start making the content specifically for tradespeople, for other HVAC people, versus maybe if it was a different introduction, not HVAC talk, that it would have been a different, I don't know. There's so many different TikToks out there. They just live in the algorithm. Like mine and my wife's TikToks, very different TikToks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is Stephanie seems like the type of person, her and her husband at least, where they are occupying specific spaces on the internet. If that's their side passion project and connecting with the community over there.
The side by side.
Yeah. So, so I think it's interesting. What you're seeing is through Stephanie, through Anchor, and the way that they're using it is they're in real time discovering how to occupy an existing space on the internet through TikTok, through YouTube, through Facebook, whatever that is. They seem really driven to not only cultivate a community, but to be a part of one, to be a part of an existing community. And that might be the way that contractors need to start looking at producing content when they're starting to look into TikTok, is figure out what these spaces are, what kind of content exists there, and how you can participate in those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, one, huge congratulations to Stephanie, her husband, and the Anchor team on closing their first ever $1 million month. That is, I mean, I cannot stress this enough, how huge and how good of a feeling that is. Like, that's like one of those highs that you're like, oh, I just want to chase that. Like for us, it's reaching that $2 million month. I'm like, oh, we got to get there. Like we're so close. We've done it a couple times, like, but no, hitting that first million, hitting those milestones is huge. So congratulations to the Anchor team, to the entire staff there. It's a team effort, and Stephanie would be the first person to tell you that. So congratulations to you guys on a great month. Continue that success, continue that momentum, because now that's the floor. You got to hit that in July, because otherwise, speaking from experience, you will be woefully sad whenever you don't hit it. So keep climbing, keep pushing, keep growing. And then to all of our listeners, if you want to see more content like this or have an idea as to who you'd like to see us talk to, drop it in the comments, leave us a message, like, subscribe as always, and we will be back next time with a different version of Trade Talk. As always, eyes up, feet moving, do something nice for somebody. You never know, it might change their life. Here we go.